Imagine waking up one morning, walking to your mailbox like you do every day, and pulling out a letter that changes everything. It's from your homeowners association. You open it without thinking much, maybe it's about upcoming landscaping or trash collection schedules. But instead, it's a fine. A hefty one. For a barking dog. A dog that you don't even have. At first, you just stare at the paper, thinking there's been a mistake. Maybe they sent it to the wrong address. Maybe your neighbor got this and your name ended up on it by accident. You even laugh a little, thinking it'll be easy to sort out. But as you read on, the letter sounds serious. According to the HOA, your dog has been disturbing the neighborhood. The letter even mentions repeated complaints from nearby residents. They claim the barking goes on for hours, sometimes late into the night. Now, here's the kicker, you live alone. You don't own a dog. You've never owned a dog. You don't even dog sit. The only time a pet has been in your house was when your friend brought their chihuahua over for a dinner visit months ago. So how is this possible? You check the date on the complaints. You try to remember if maybe, just maybe, a dog had wandered into your yard. But nothing comes to mind. Still, you don't panic. You tell yourself this must be a simple misunderstanding, and you'll clear it up with a quick phone call. You call the HOA office. The woman on the other end sounds polite at first, but her tone shifts quickly when you deny owning a dog. She tells you multiple neighbors have complained. She says they even confirmed it was your house. You tell her again that there must be a mistake, that you don't own a dog and never have. She says the complaint has been documented and the fine will stand unless you can provide proof that it's not your dog. Proof. How do you prove you don't own something? That's when it hits you, this isn't just a clerical error. You're being held responsible for something you didn't do. And worse, you have no way to prove your innocence, at least not without some effort. At this point, the situation shifts from frustrating to infuriating. You start to feel watched, accused, like someone has judged you without even speaking to you. You look out the window at your quiet street and suddenly, it doesn't feel so peaceful anymore. Someone out there filed a complaint against you. Someone told the HOA that the barking dog was yours. But why? The fine sits on your kitchen table, reminding you that every day you wait to fix this, the HOA could escalate it. More fines. Potential legal threats. Maybe even liens. That's when the idea hits you. If they want proof, you'll give them proof. And the only way to do that is to catch the real dog in the act. Quietly. Carefully. Without tipping anyone off. So, you make a plan. Your plan starts simple, observation. You begin by sitting on your porch during the early mornings and late evenings, just listening. You've never paid much attention to the sounds of the neighborhood before. But now, every bark makes your ears perk up. The first few days, nothing much happens. It's quiet. Peaceful, even. And that only makes things worse. If there's no barking now, how are you supposed to prove anything? Then, on a Wednesday evening, right after sunset, you hear it. A sharp bark. Then another. Then 5 in a row. It's loud and close, but not coming from inside your home. You step out quietly, scanning the area. And there it is. Just 2 houses down. A medium-sized brown dog, standing in the backyard, barking non-stop at passing cars and shadows on the fence. You watch for 20 minutes. The dog doesn't stop. No one calls it back inside. No one tells it to be quiet. You're standing in your own yard, and the sound is echoing off the walls like it's coming from everywhere. You finally realize why someone might think the sound was coming from your place, especially if they weren't paying close attention. Now you have something to work with. But that's not enough. You need more than your word. You need evidence that proves, beyond any doubt, that this dog isn't yours and that it lives 2 houses down. That's when the idea of cameras comes to mind. Discreet ones. You order a couple of motion-triggered security cameras online. Nothing fancy. Just enough to catch video and audio during the hours when the barking is the worst. When they arrive, you install them carefully. One on the side of your house pointing toward the neighbor's yard, and another near your front porch. The goal is to capture everything, without violating anyone's privacy or causing drama. You don't want confrontation. You want the truth. The cameras run quietly for 3 nights. You barely sleep. Every morning, you check the footage. The first night, not much. A raccoon. Some wind. A passing cat. The second night, a little better, 3 instances of barking, each lasting about a minute or 2. But it's the third night that seals it. Between 11 p.m. and 3 a.m., the dog is barking on and off like clockwork. The footage shows the dog pacing in its yard, howling at every noise. Your own yard remains completely empty and silent. Not even a leaf moves. The timestamps line up exactly with the times listed in the HOA complaint. You can't help but laugh, not because it's funny, but because you're finally holding the one thing the HOA said you needed, undeniable proof. Now comes the hard part. What will the HOA say when they see it? Will they admit the mistake? Will they drop the fine? Or will they double down? Either way, you're ready. You didn't ask for this fight, but now you're all in. You wake up early the next morning, more focused than ever. You take the camera footage and start editing clips together. You keep it clean, simple, and easy to follow. Each clip is marked with the date and time, showing the dog barking repeatedly while your property stays quiet. No sound from your yard. No dog in sight. Just clear, solid proof that the noise wasn't coming from you. Then you print out screenshots, one after another, showing exactly where the dog is, where it's barking from, and how far away it is from your house. You even include a map showing the direction of the sound and the layout of the homes. Everything is labeled. Everything is documented. You're not just sending a complaint, you're presenting a case. You email the HOA with the subject line, "Response to barking dog fine, evidence attached." You keep your message polite but firm. You explain that you do not own a dog, never have, and that you've conducted your own investigation. You attach the video files, the screenshots, and the audio clips. You ask them to review the materials and reconsider the fine immediately. Hours go by. Then a full day. No response. On the second day, you get an email back. It's brief. Almost cold. They say they've received your submission and will review the matter within the next 10 business days. 10 business days. That's 2 more weeks of waiting, just to find out if they'll even look at your evidence seriously. But this time, you're not powerless. You have the truth on your side, and it shows. A few days later, you get another message. This one is different. It's from someone higher up, someone from the HOA board. Their tone is a little more respectful. They thank you for your detailed evidence and say the fine has been placed on hold pending further investigation. You know what that means. They see the footage. They see the truth. But they're not ready to admit it just yet. The next step comes fast. You get a call, an actual phone call, from the HOA president. They sound awkward, almost embarrassed. They tell you the board reviewed your footage during a recent meeting and agree there is reasonable doubt that the barking came from your property. You keep calm, listening carefully. Then they say it, the fine has been cancelled. Your record will show no violations. The complaint is being retracted. You thank them, but you can hear it in their voice. They're not used to being challenged. They're definitely not used to being proven wrong. And they don't say anything about apologizing for the mistake or the stress it caused. They just want it to go away now. You hang up and sit down in silence. You stare out at the street again, the same quiet place where this whole mess started. Only now, it feels a little different. Like something's shifted. Like this wasn't just about a barking dog after all. Later that evening, you take a slow walk around the block. You've lived in this neighborhood for years, but suddenly it feels like unfamiliar territory. You pass the house with the barking dog, the same house from your footage. The dog is outside again, pacing the fence, letting out the same restless bark that started this entire chain of events. You glance at the house but don't stop. You don't knock. You're not here to cause drama. You just want to understand why someone pointed the finger at you in the first place. As you walk past, a curtain moves slightly. Someone's watching. Maybe they know you figured it out. Maybe they're nervous now. You wonder if they ever considered what this accusation could have done to you. A fine is one thing. But a reputation in a tight-knit HOA community? That can stick longer than any fee. People talk. Rumors start. And all it takes is one complaint to paint someone as a problem neighbor. Back at home, you sit down and start writing everything out. The dates, the calls, the emails, the footage, the response. You document it all like a journal. Not just for yourself, but because you know this could happen to someone else. You've seen how quickly assumptions turn into accusations, and how little effort it takes for someone to say, "I'm sure it was that house," without knowing a single fact. The next HOA newsletter arrives a few days later. You open it cautiously, wondering if your situation will be mentioned. It's not. But there's a news section now, an announcement that the HOA will revise its noise complaint procedures. They say future complaints must be supported with evidence and will require multiple confirmations from different homes before any fines are issued. You smile. It's not a full admission, but it's something. A small change. A quiet shift. One that likely wouldn't have happened if you hadn't pushed back. You keep the cameras up, just in case. Not because you're paranoid, but because now you know better. Mistakes can happen, sure. But sometimes, they're not just mistakes. Sometimes, they're lazy shortcuts. Someone didn't want to investigate properly. Someone didn't want to ask questions. Someone just wanted the barking to stop, and they didn't care who took the fall. The funny part? You've started recognizing the bark. You can hear it even before it starts now, like a signal. It's not angry or aggressive. It's anxious. Repetitive. Like the dog's trapped in a routine it can't break. And every time it barks, you wonder if the real owner ever hears it the way you do. If they understand how much noise one dog can make, not just through sound, but through consequences. You sit on your porch again, just listening. Same street. Same sounds. But now, every bark tells a different story. One you'll never forget. Days go by, and life slowly returns to normal, or at least something close to it. You stop checking the cameras as often. You don't flinch every time you hear a bark in the distance. But a part of you is still alert, like your guard won't fully come down. And who could blame you? Once you've been falsely accused, you start seeing the cracks in the system. The cracks that could have swallowed you whole if you hadn't pushed back. Your neighbors act the same, for the most part. A few wave like always. Some don't make eye contact. There's one man a few houses down who suddenly avoids your side of the street during his evening walks. Maybe he was the one who filed the original complaint. Or maybe he just heard the story and assumed something that wasn't true. Either way, you've learned something. Silence can be just as loud as barking. You start thinking about how many people might have folded under pressure. How many would have just paid the fine to avoid trouble? You imagine someone elderly, someone alone, someone without cameras or the money to fight back. They would have been labeled a nuisance. They would have been silenced, fined, maybe even kicked out eventually. All because someone pointed and the HOA nodded without question. The truth is, this wasn't just about one dog or one noise complaint. It was about power. About systems that rely on people staying quiet. You were never supposed to question it. You were supposed to accept the fine, feel guilty, and move on. But you didn't. You looked closer. You asked questions. And now, even if the board never admits it publicly, you know they're thinking twice before acting so quickly again. One afternoon, you hear something unexpected. A knock at your door. It's a woman from the next block. You've seen her before in passing but never spoken to her directly. She looks nervous. She tells you she heard about what happened. And then, she quietly admits that she once got a fine for overgrown hedges she didn't even have. She paid it because she didn't know she could fight it. You invite her in, and the two of you talk. She listens as you explain what you did, how you gathered your evidence, how you stayed calm but persistent. She nods along, eyes wide. Before she leaves, she says something that sticks with you: "I wish I'd known it was possible to say no." That night, you look over your footage one last time. Not to review it, not to double-check anything, but just to remind yourself of what you did. One ordinary person, a few cameras, and the decision to push back against something unfair. You didn't yell. You didn't threaten. You just proved the truth, step by step. And now, every time you hear that same barking echo down the block, it doesn't bother you like it used to. Because you know, it's not your problem anymore. A few weeks later, just when things finally seem calm, you get another envelope in the mail. It's the same HOA letterhead. Same tone. Same cold formatting. Your heart rate jumps. You hesitate before opening it, already bracing for another fight. You unfold the paper and scan it quickly, no fine this time, but something else. It's a notice for an upcoming HOA meeting. And at the bottom, a list of discussion topics. Number 4 catches your eye: new complaint verification procedures. It clicks immediately. This is the fallout. The change. Quiet, unspoken, but real. They're rewriting the rules, because of you. No public credit, no official acknowledgement. But you're in the room now, whether they say your name or not. You don't plan on attending the meeting, but something inside you shifts. Maybe you should. Maybe this isn't just about fixing your own situation. Maybe this is about making sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. The thought lingers all day. You go back and forth: do you speak up? Or stay silent and let it fade into the background? That night, you drive to the community hall. You sit in the back, quietly. The room is half full. Faces you recognize, a few you don't. The board members sit up front like they always do, papers neatly stacked, voices calm and rehearsed. When they get to the fourth item, you lean in. One board member talks about maintaining fairness. Another mentions recent concerns about procedural clarity. No one says it directly, but you know. This is their way of cleaning up without admitting they made a mess. Still, the message is clear: from now on, complaints will need evidence. Multiple witnesses. Video, if possible. No more one-person accusations leading straight to penalties. And just like that, it's done. No debate. No drama. Just a quiet shift in policy that could change everything for someone else down the line. You leave the meeting feeling different. Not victorious. Not angry. Just aware. Aware of how easily things can go wrong. And how important it is for someone, anyone, to stand up when they do. A few days later, the neighbor with the barking dog puts up a new fence. Taller, more solid. You notice the dog isn't outside as much. Maybe they got the message. Or maybe the complaints finally reached the right doorstep. You'll never know for sure. But the real takeaway isn't about the dog, the fence, or even the HOA. It's about what happens when you stop accepting blame for something you didn't do. When you choose to dig deeper, when you gather the facts, and when you hold others accountable. Quietly. Calmly. But without backing down. Now when the mail comes, you don't flinch. When the dog barks, you don't bristle. You've been through the fire and came out the other side sharper, stronger, and more aware of just how important it is to question what doesn't feel right. Because sometimes, that's all it takes to change everything. It's funny how something as small as a barking dog can pull back the curtain on everything that's broken. You didn't ask to become part of some battle between truth and red tape. But here you are. And as the weeks pass, you start noticing other little things in the neighborhood, things you never paid attention to before. Like the man across the street who never parks his car in his driveway because it has an oil leak and the HOA threatened him with a fine. Or the single mother a few houses down who got warned for having a clothesline in her backyard, something she used to save money on electricity. You start seeing it all clearly now. This isn't just about rules. It's about control. And it's usually the quietest people who pay the price. One afternoon, you catch a new neighbor struggling with something on his front lawn. You walk over, offer a hand. His name's Paul. Just moved in. As you help him with a broken sprinkler head, he asks what the neighborhood is like. You pause. Then you tell him the truth, not to scare him, but to prepare him. You tell him what happened with the barking dog. His eyes widen. They really find you without proof? You nod. Then he tells you something even more interesting. He moved here because he thought the HOA would keep things fair and quiet. Safe. That was the promise. He's stunned to hear how quickly that illusion can crack. You tell him something you wish someone had told you earlier: keep records. Always. Because fairness only works when someone's watching. Later that week, you get another visit. This time from a young couple. They live 2 streets over. They heard about what happened. They ask if you still have your footage, your notes, your emails. Not because they want to gossip, but because they're dealing with a different kind of complaint. A false one. And they don't know what to do. You walk them through it. Step by step. Just like you did. You show them how to collect evidence, how to write back without emotion, how to stay calm even when it feels like the walls are closing in. They thank you, and something shifts again. It hits you, you're not just defending yourself anymore. You're helping others do the same. And that's powerful. Now when people walk by, some wave a little longer. Some stop to talk. Not everyone. But enough to feel like something's changed. Not big. Not dramatic. Just a quiet resistance growing under the surface. People remembering they have a voice. That they can push back without shouting. You still hear the dog sometimes. And you still check your cameras every now and then. Not out of fear, but out of habit. Out of awareness. Because once you've seen how easily things can go wrong, you don't ever stop paying attention. You just learn to notice sooner. And act faster. One morning, you're sipping coffee on the porch when a white SUV pulls up near the corner. You recognize it, one of the HOA board members. She steps out, clipboard in hand, walking slowly along the sidewalk, checking house numbers. You watch her pause in front of a home 3 doors down. She scribbles something. Then she moves on. She doesn't look your way, but you know she sees you. Her pace quickens just slightly when she passes your house. You wonder if things have really changed or if they're just quieter now, more careful. Not less controlling, just more calculated. You can't prove it, but the air feels different. Less confrontational. More cautious. As if the HOA knows that at least one resident is willing to push back, and they don't want another mess on their hands. A few days later, a small flyer appears in your mailbox. It's not from the HOA this time. It's hand-folded, printed on regular paper. The title says, "Know Your Rights, a Guide for HOA Residents." No sender. No signature. But the language feels familiar. It lists basic protections. What to ask when fined. How to request evidence. How to appeal a violation. You flip through it, and by the end, you're almost sure someone you spoke to had a hand in writing it. You smile a little. Something is spreading. Quietly. Not in protest, not in defiance, but in knowledge. Awareness. And maybe that's the most powerful part of it all. The more people who understand the rules, the harder it is for those rules to be twisted. You keep going about your life, but now with sharper eyes. You notice when letters sit unopened in mailboxes too long. When someone's trash bins get knocked over but no one says a word. When a porch light goes out and stays that way. These things used to seem small, forgettable. But now they look like early signs, clues that someone might be dealing with more than they're saying. You start checking in with neighbors more often. Not in a nosy way, just a simple, "Hey, everything all right?" You never used to do that. Most people didn't. But the silence is what makes these places vulnerable. It's what lets unfair systems grow. Then one afternoon, the woman with the dog walks by your house. She's holding the leash this time. The dog is calm. She hesitates, then raises her hand in a wave. You wave back. No words exchanged, but there's something in that look. Not friendship. Not guilt. Just recognition. Like she knows the part she played, whether she meant to or not. And you realize something else, you're not angry anymore. You're just aware. Aware that fairness doesn't just show up on its own. It's something people build together, one step at a time. And if no one starts that process, the silence wins. That's the lesson you didn't ask for, but now carry with you every single day. Months have passed since the barking dog incident, but the ripples keep spreading through the neighborhood. You notice subtle shifts. Conversations at the mailbox aren't just about the weather anymore. People are sharing stories. Stories about unfair fines, questionable complaints, and moments when they wished someone had stood up for them. You hear about a man who was fined for parking his car on the street during a snowstorm, even though the rules say nothing about it. You hear about a family warned for having too many holiday lights up after Christmas. The HOA, once a distant and faceless authority, feels less intimidating. Maybe it's because people are starting to realize they have a voice. Or maybe it's because your story reminded them that pushing back isn't impossible. You start getting nods and smiles during your walks, small acknowledgments that say, "We see you. We get it." One evening, you attend a casual block party. It's the first real community event you've gone to in years. The same neighbors who once barely spoke are there, chatting and laughing. You catch a few glances and friendly waves from those who once avoided eye contact. It's strange how a little tension can flip into something else once it breaks. During the party, someone pulls you aside, a middle-aged woman named Lisa who lives a few houses down. She's heard about your battle with the HOA and says she's been fighting her own fight over a noise complaint for months. She shows you her phone, filled with texts and emails she's exchanged with the board. Frustration is clear in her eyes. You share advice, encourage her to gather evidence, and remind her not to give up. You tell her that the system might seem stacked, but with patience and proof, it's possible to make them listen. Lisa nods, grateful for the support. Later that week, you check your mailbox and find a small stack of handwritten notes from neighbors, thank you messages and stories of their own struggles. It feels like a quiet movement is building. People are no longer isolated in their problems, they're connecting, sharing, and standing together in small ways. One night, you watch the dog from down the street again. It's older now, quieter, and the barking has mostly stopped. You wonder if the owners finally found peace, or if the neighborhood simply learned how to listen better. Either way, the sounds of your street are different now. Less tension. More understanding. You realize this whole experience taught you more than you expected. It wasn't just about proving you didn't own a barking dog or fighting an unfair fine. It was about uncovering how important it is to speak up, to document, to connect with others, and to never let silence give power to unfairness. And as the sun sets on your quiet neighborhood, you feel ready. Ready to stand up again if you have to. Not just for yourself, but for anyone who needs someone to show them the way. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person to say, "This isn't right," and everything begins to change.